on air. See, it says right there. Woo woo. Okay. Yep. Hi folks. It's uh it's a beautiful day outside. Um yeah. I hope everybody's been having a good week. It's Thursday. I've put up on the screen, I'll get my big old noggin out of the way. I've put up on the screen today's one page story. And my head's already cold. And it's from a suggestion from Irene K. of a time traveling cat that gets lost in space. I moved the book and now I don't know what it says. Okay, so we talked about this. We went through it yesterday about how I was going to go about doing it. And so one of the things that I came up with, hi, there we go, better one. Okay, so one of the things we came up with was to try to do the blurry thing about time and passage of time, symbolic language. And then here's our cat, there's space, and the phasic earth moving through time and space. Hi, Elena, welcome aboard. Hiya, Tim. Corbin is sleeping on his bed in the guest room, but I'll pass on his hello. And then here's the cat at the control panel. And so all of these elements are in the finished page, the difference being that I alter the size and shape and how they work together in the composition. But all the nuts and bolts are right there. There's nothing added visually in the computer, in the robot. So there's another recent page done. I've been working, plugging away on this painting for that I'll be dropping off tomorrow, and I'll take a picture of it before I do. But yeah, it's good feelings. Good feelings. Anyways, so, but in addition to that, when I have leftover paint, similar to like when you're doing a jelly plating or something like that, and you have excess material, you blare it off onto another piece of paper, or you just don't dump it, don't waste it, as it were. And so I have been putting together these little images on cardstocks and preparatory images, stuff that I can figure out something to do with them, and a whole bunch of them, letting them dry. Different paper materials, different. This is kind of like clouds, you know. Looks like clouds over a horizon. But we'll see what we can make of these. But it's interesting, you know, just putting marks down on a surface, and yet because of how our eyes and our imagination works, it can make us look at that and have an idea in mind of what it could possibly become. You know, what could this, you know, is this a field of wheat? You know, but those allowing oneself to take an opportunity and to see if it can develop into something more sometimes just comes from squidging a little bit of excess paint on some paper and seeing what that provides us with, what kind of opportunities. Like some of these are downright interesting. You know, and I do know some abstractionists that spend an awful lot of time on the right combination of things and so on and so forth. And then I'm like, just play. You find out so many interesting things from the playing. And maybe it's a whole, well, it's the exact brushstroke and placement therein, and okay, whatever. But, you know, you can get fun things and just, you know, fiddling about. So, with that in mind, today is I'm going to do a one-page story abstractly. And this is from a suggestion yesterday. I can't remember whose it was, and I apologize for that. Hopefully you can hear me okay. The suggestion yesterday was that, Linda, maybe it was you. Linda likes when I collage stuff, but somebody said it'd be interesting to see if I do anything with abstraction. And I honestly can't I can't think of I can't think of who that was or what the idea behind it was and what kind of approach to it would be. With what one of the things that I was talking about yesterday, and this is where I think stuff stems from, is an illustration that I did with on the back of the collage. So here's that collage page, and then on the back of that, I was talking about simplicity and in execution, and how sometimes that abstracting of images, that simplicity, can lead us in really interesting, creative ways. And if you don't feel comfortable about your degree of drawing ability and how you may feel it has shortcomings, and many people do. We all do, let's be honest. Because even those people that others say are really sufficiently developed at drawing, they look at some of their drawings and go, "That's terrible. I'd rather draw like did it, and so on and so forth." So, yeah, there's no easy rubric about sufficient drawing level and where that is. Everybody's going to have a different opinion on that, even including the individuals that are involved in the drawing themselves. So why worry too much about it? Yesterday was a fun stream, and lots of people hanging out and having fun with us, and so I appreciate that. And thank everybody for that, taking part in that. And who knows, maybe we'll have people here again. So I'm going to grab the book, and I got to check off the one that we did yesterday. So that was a new suggestion that came in from Irene Kavanaugh, Irene K. And I just thought we'll get right down to it. I try to get right on those suggestions that come in from people that are just jumping in for the first time. So so there's some fun ones in here. And then there's some that I'm still scratching my head about. What in the world? When they come in, it's like, I appreciate where your headspace is at, but what? So we've got, okay, so here's one from somebody named Larry. I'm not sure what Larry's last name is. It just says Larry. And it says, why sci-fi is. See here, down the bottom? Why sci-fi is. Oh, all right, let's do that. So, why sci-fi is kind of fun, because I'll write it down on something before it leaves my head immediately. Why sci-fi is. And that's from Larry. All right, so I kind of like that a lot. Hi, Susanna, welcome aboard. Okay, so one of the things I thought we could do is to apply this in an abstract way. Now, my thought behind that is sci-fi images in general, right? We've got, what I'm going to do is use our old trusty doodad and say sci-fi. As simple as that. And then we're going to go bonkers. And what I mean by bonkers is we're just going to take these little thumbnail ideas and break them down really abstractly. So, give me a second, I'm pegging something into the table. Okay, so, and then we're going to try to combine those things into some kind of narrative. So sci-fi is one of those crazy things where you've either got franchise sci-fi or abstract sci-fi, but let's figure out, then we'll do it right here on a note paper. You've got, what do we got? We got spaceships. Boy, this pencil's poppy, isn't it? Spaceships. We've got lasers. We've got aliens. We've got strange planets. What else we got for sci-fi? Robots. Right? And that includes cyborgs and other individuals that are half robot, half whatever. And let's see what else we have. What am I missing? Oh, maybe lost civilizations. And the reason that I'm referring to that is things like Forbidden Planet and stuff like that. There's some really interesting stuff that comes from that. And the unknown. And so I'm going to write down unknown or cosmic. And the reason that I'm writing that is that unknown or cosmic can directly relate to some of these things like, while it might not, it seems more like horror for most people, I would argue that the Cthulhian stuff and the Lovecraft stuff is more sci-fi. And the reason that that is that sci-fi largely tries to understand the unknown and a sort of sense of hyperfuturism or hyper ancestry. Far in the future, far in the past. Or the other side of the world where, the other side of the other Earth, the alternate Earth. It just takes ideas and allows them to fully gestate and be experienced. So with that in mind, you'll see things like space monsters, that when mankind comes across them, alters mankind on a fundamental level and stuff like that, which is what Lovecraft is, right? And the unknown, like there's another book he wrote called Color Out of Space. It's where some meteorite hits the Earth and it's a color that we don't understand, and then suddenly it starts maligning the entirety of the region around where it crashed, and it just turns into a horror show. But the fundamental basis of it is an asteroid crashes from space, sci-fi element, So let's leave that sort of cosmic idea in there. Think about story types where you've got Galactus. Marvel Comics has this. Galactus is this ancient dude from the beginning of this universe because he lived in the last universe. So the idea is a procession of universe, right? Procession of existence. So he is a check and balance system built into our universe. And so he goes about the universe draining the energy dry of planets in order to sustain himself. And so he has been alive for millennia. And it's an interesting idea, but when you think about it from that cosmic perspective, you're like, this gigantic being shows up at our planet and we're insignificant gnats or ants compared to this organism, and it just starts destroying the internal core of our planet. We're all dead meat. Nothing we can do. I mean, that's a cosmic, scary idea. And there to the Marvel Comics. Now, mind you, they try to, in different times, he's just a giant dude and the good guys are going to try to beat him up. But in other times, it's this cosmic situation. So it's pure sci-fi. Lost civilizations, we go to Mars, we find ancient archaeological site on Mars where there's little hand symbols for three-fingered, palm readings so whoever lived here before, their hands were three fingers, oh, aliens, ancient aliens, So Lost Civilization fits in like that. Like even all these ancient alien television programs and stuff is based on the hypothesis that they've come to visit us in the past, and our entire basis of society and how we create things and design things, and even our contemporary modern technology is all from harvested information from alien beings. So, it's sci-fi. So Scientology, by the way, I'm just waiting for the lawyers. Scientology, when you get down to the basis of it, is written. It's a bad sci-fi novel constructed by a bad sci-fi writer from the 1950s who was trying to set up a tax haven by creating a religion. Right? But he did so where an alien named Xemnu, took all the criminals in his universe and he brought them to Earth and he threw them into volcanoes in Hawaii, and where their souls lived for millions of years until they started becoming free and possessing the bodies of newborn infants. And so we are carrying on these evil souls and we've got to get clear by telling people all of our secrets that they can use to blackmail us with. And then when, we all get clear once again as a species, then we can elevate to the next layer of consciousness and make movies. Anyhow, so sci-fi. Bad sci-fi. So volcanoes in Hawaii. Anyhow. So I thought one of the things, so abstraction. Let's talk about abstraction. Now, there is a couple of things. I'm going to write down a couple of names, and I encourage people to look them up. One name is the Pander brothers. Now, that's technically two people. But the Pander brothers, they did comics back in the 1980s through a comic called Comico, and probably some other publishers as well. I'm pretty sure of it. Now they're graphic artists in Portland, Oregon, where they're making cool murals for the sides of buildings and other projects that they do now, which is, cool. But in the 80s, they did comics, and but their art style was highly, highly abstract and highly exaggerated and highly angular. So if you look up comics by the Pander brothers, you might see an example of very, where somebody is looking over here to the side and her nose is like that, and as she's concerned by things, she's got the whole angular ear and the shock of hair that has its own sort of form. And, these kinds of wild angular lines, and this is how you're designing your characters. I mean, it's symbolic language. It's still cartooning. It's just when you've got these hard triangle shapes, and big coifs of hair that really are just shape language. I mean, that abstract, oops, I'm sorry, that's right off the panel. I really apologize for that. So the Pander brothers, Pander. So when you're doing things like that with this sort of symbolism, the eye is a circle and a line. The nose is a little triangle, slash for the mouth, triangular chin, tube of the neck. This is all very geometric and very, very abstracted. A lot of people will think of abstraction, and you'll start thinking of Picasso's, what is it? He has somebody's whose head is kind of going like this and the hair is moving forward, but both eyes are on the same, I know what it is, it's this. Both eyes are on the same side of the face, like that, which is kind of odd. And there's the ear, that's real crazy levels of abstraction, where you're trying to reassociate and redefine body, right? Which works really well with sci-fi when you think about it, because there's a fun thing in storytelling and in sequential art where there's three principal shapes that, my hypothesis has always been that you use those three principal shapes and you can draw anything: circle, square, triangle. And as you become more sophisticated, it becomes, sphere, cube, and pyramid. And, but there's still basically these three things. And if you look at any objects around you, you can figure out how to break those down into those three forms or extension therein. And that includes things like cylinders, that we know that there's another piece there, or large, long rectangles, you've got things like belt buckles where they've got these beveled edges on them. What is a belt buckle? A pin in it, but just an extended rectangle. So all of those things can be broken down into shapes. And, there's interesting ways of people doing that. So if this is these three basic shapes that you can work from, then you're going to get things like personality type. So if you look at, here's a person, and I'm going to do them really basic, and then we're going to see what they can kind of imply. Okay, so let's say this is a person, this is a person, right? And this is a person. Okay, so right off the hop, we have these associations that we make with these forms. Here's this rotund person, and it makes us associate all kinds of ideas about a rotund physique and what that may well represent about the individual themselves or the characteristics that they might portray. You can have this very angular, thin person up top who widens out towards the bottom and has some really interesting complexity to their form, big thighs, big hips, but very small upper body. And you'll see a lot of exaggerations, especially in graphic art in urban centers, where they'll really accentuate certain physical traits on characters, largely female. But also the triangular body part, immediately people start to associate of girl with dress, right? It's just this weird symbology that we have in place now. Whereas you see square body person is the boxy, blockish build, sort of denotes a really strong, powerful physique, right? A donut person sounds delicious, Susanna says. All right, everybody take a bite. So that's an avocado person. So the square body can sort of give a sense of solidity or strength, right? So when you look at these characteristics that get contributed through, it's by extension of those things as we're drawing physical form in individuals and whatever level of complexity that we draw them in. If you reduce it all back, you can break down those characteristics into these little elements. Hi, Liz, welcome aboard. So each of those has a different psychological implication. Each of those has a different individual characteristics applied to it from the person that they're each meant to represent. Gender can be allocated through these three simple shapes. It's an interesting way of approaching stuff. But we're going to try to play with a little bit of that today. And so if we think about this kind of construction, all right, and we think about what we can do with that to explore a story like why sci-fi is, well, now we've informed ourselves a little bit about a direction that we can go in when we allocate abstract elements to our characters. So here's a piece of cardstock, and it's a recycled piece of cardstock, got a little bit of whatnot on the bottom, but that's good. I'm easy like Sunday morning when it comes to that. I'm cool. I'll just flip it over. Look at that. It's perfect paper. No, it's not. It's torn on this side. Well, let's just use this. Let's just do what we can do. And, okay. So we've got spaceship. We've got lasers, aliens, strange planets, robots, lost civilizations, and the unknown or cosmic elements. And our story is why sci-fi is. So if we want to break it down, and I thought I'd do a little bit more of this for folks, and I'm using this piece of cardstock that's been painted over. But if we want to break down an idea like why sci-fi is, okay, so I mean the first off is that we can posit the question right off the hop, right? In our first panel type of a thing. So that's what this will be. And I'll zoom in a little bit. Is it going to do it? It's doing it. It's doing it. Okay, so here's our first panel approach. Why sci-fi is, and then we can start to take these different point by points that I've just expressed again, and we can start to incorporate those. But how do we do that in an abstract kind of way? Well, we've talked about the geometrics in a composition. We've talked about how basic geometric form can represent ideas. So how can we extend that out? How can we push that into our storytelling? So right off the hop, we're going to start with why sci-fi is in the first panel. Okay? So that is as wrote. Now, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things, and there may well be an 8th one that pops up. And if anybody can think of one, let me know. Oh yeah, how about super, like future city, etc., stuff like that. That's a good 8th one. All right, so we've got, if we divide this page down into, let's say 9, why sci-fi is. So let's look at each one as its own. Spaceships. Now, what kind of spaceships do we want to look at, and how do we want to define those? So we can do spaceships as, I don't know why I've got an orange pencil to do this, but this is what I'm holding today. And we're going to approach this, and the abstraction that we're going to sort of work into is this kind of a thing, okay, that we talked about yesterday. So that's an idea for those that don't know how to draw perfectly. They can make those figures and draw a story. That's exactly true. I have a comic, and I'll have to show it to you sometime. It's one of my favorite things. It's about the entirety of the Napoleonic Wars in one comic book, one 20-page comic issue. And the funny thing is, on the cover, is it says, so the entire book is tiny little rectangles, row after row after row after row. And you'll have a dot here, and it'll say, you know, I'm almost home. I'm so happy. And then the dot arrives at a line and says, oh, the homestead. And then the next panel is 2 dots. Hello, darling. Oh, honey, I'm so glad you're home. The entire story of the Napoleonic Wars is told with dots. And if there's an army, there's like 6 dots in the panel. You know, but the funny part is, on that cover, it shows a panel blown up 1,000 times, and it has a Napoleonic soldier with a gun. So the idea is that if we were able to magnify these pages to a specific degree, you'll see how beautiful the drawings are. But truth be told, the person was writing this story in this absolutely fantastically silly convention. I love this book. I really, truly love it. It exemplifies, in my mind, one of the greatest examples of sometimes less is more, because this story has so much in it. Like, it's, I think, like 10 rows a page, and, you know, upwards of 12 panels across that page. It's brilliant. It really is. And I'll have to show it sometime here on the stream. I gotta look it up. I'll have to look it up and find it. So yeah. Okay, so we're gonna do an abstract approach to this. So I think the first thing to do is space with planets. Okay. Excuse me, I was thirsty. Okay, so space with planets. So if we look at planets, like if we look at our first panel and we break it down, I better not use this guy, because we're going to fiddle about a little bit here. So if I have, let's say, you know, there's our planet, okay? And nearby that is some tiny ones. There we go. So I'll have a couple of little planets around it. There you go. And then another little circular planet here. So we're just doing basic shapes, right? And that's really what the principle of this abstract approach we're taking is in the first place. So if we put some little stars in here and there and into outer space, now if I'm going to approach this as, you know what, let's do this. Let's give it a ring. Let's give this big planet a ring. And another little smaller planet in the foreground. Just make it a little more interesting. So if this is our first panel, and a ruler, and we're going to divide the page up as so. And one of the things that we can do is take that approach I talked about yesterday and apply it here so that, give me a second here, folks. So that as the panels move across the page, they're going to have their own identifiable images in each one. And as the different story points that each of these panels take, math and talking is hard. So, and the different story points that are happening in each page is also going to continue on that. So we're going to have to separate everything up in a kind of a neat and interesting way. So I thought I would do this in an opaque fashion. And what I mean for an opaque fashion is if I've got these Staedtler colored pens. Uno, dos, and tres, that's their names. And so if we were to utilize these, or I can also use, you know what, let's go black and white. Let's go hardcore. So if I'm going to use a black one, okay? Now, and then what we're going to do for chopping it up a little bit more is we're going to outline everything. So if I have a star, then around each star is going to be a small ribbon of space as well. So let's move in on this one a little bit more. Okay, now, if we have a circular planet here, and we'll just do this by an opaque value, all right, and then we'll erase out any pencil that we have. So now, for this next planet that's behind it, I have to account for two things. One is that I have to give space for where the rings are that go around the planet, and I have to give space for where this moon is in the foreground of said planet. And so I'm going to come around and color it in like so. So it starts to become like one of those coloring toys. So it's kind of a weird approach to abstracting it, but every time I see planets and stars, I remember the little prince. Oh, nice. Okay, so if we're going to do the same thing on this side, then we're going to leave a line, because I'm going to erase this out in a second. And then we'll follow around the form here. Ooh. You know what? It's funny how you associate things. They did a movie recently, a series of movies, the Guardians of the Galaxies, and ELO was in the soundtrack for those, and I loved it because for some weird reason, my entire life, I've had this idea about, it just makes me think of space whenever I hear ELO. I don't know why, it just does. Okay, so let's do now, so now we've used these two different values, and we're going to use the third value for this opposite planet. Actually, I think I might have grabbed the other one. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter. So, and again, I'm leaving this space between these two. So before we erase some stuff out and then just put in the stars, I've got to account for the area that goes around the rings. I've got to account for the area that goes around the planet and its little, moons here. And so on and so forth. So it's tricky because you want to apply the line right to the object, but we can't here. That would be breaking the rules. And we're setting up a clear set of the way that we're simplifying or abstracting our story here. So there's that. And now we're going to come in this way into our ring. And the same on this side. So, and then I've got to put this external line. And so the reason that I'm putting this as a line, it's like a nice cutoff point for when I put ink down, right? So it's just doing a really basic thing Now, we fill in this area as well. And I have to be conscious of it lining up with that. And sitting on the inseam of that. So there's our planet. Now, I gotta let this dry for a second before and then we'll just do little circles for where our stars are gonna be. Now here's a small moon. Oh, now I've got strange magic in my head. Which one do I think is darkest? That one. Hey, look at that. It is the right one for that last choice. Good. Okay, so yeah, I think of the muse. I think of you think of the Little Prince. I think of ELO. Whenever I think of sci-fi space things, I just figure that ELO is probably the best band for in my head that I associate with a space soundtrack. What strange magic has to do with space, I don't know, but. So I'm just putting in some stars, and then we'll move on to our next thing. And away we go. So I'll come back in and erase this out, and we'll put the black down and make a little more sense of it. So there's our first. There's our space, and this it's basic. It's very basic language, is what I'm trying to say. It's very reduced down, which is, you know, looking at it as an abstract, right? I don't know if that makes sense to folks. If this would be an approach that you would take yourself when you're doing something like this, but so there you go. So you can see now how it's just shapes. It's just abstract shapes. And the association of, but we've put a couple principles in here. We've got overlap of objects in order to make sense of things in relationship to one another in space. We've got, you know, this simple symbolic language for space itself. We've got a number of little things that come together to tie our storytelling together. See, I'm a little too tight on it. There we go. I like this. This is fun. Is it as abstract as it could be? Well, we'll try a couple different ways. I mean, we could just keep drawing everything in this regard. We can keep drawing our spaceman or our spaceman. That's another thing. But I'm trying different approaches to how we abstractly tell our story. So there's the Panda Brothers. I would recommend taking a look at them for seeing how somebody can use abstraction in a comic. Oftentimes, and Jack Kirby would be a good example of this, oftentimes when people are drawing sci-fi elements, they use this weird kind of, in a book called Terra Obscura, Alan Moore and Yannick Paquette, there's a giant alien spaceship that's been left on our planet behind by the alien that brought it with him and then, you know, left Earth. It's the engine from, I think, a 57 Chevy, but on a massive scale, like the size of a mountain. But it's basically a 57 Chevy engine. And rather than drawing some complex space it's an engine from a truck. And I find that so fun because talk about abstracting the idea. What's this colossal alien space device that's going to, you know, take apart our planet? It's the engine from a 57 Chevy. There is an anime called Fooly Cooly, and it's spelled FLCL is how the title of it is spelled. Fooly Cooly is what it means. And this space device that has crashed on the planet Earth looks like a clothes iron. And every now and then when something, is going to happen, the government is trying to use it to figure out how to develop their technology further. But every time this thing goes off, steam billows out from around the base of it where it's, laying on the ground. And what an abstract idea that is. And yet at the same time, it's very fun. It's very compelling. And one of the characters runs around with a bass guitar that they use as a weapon. It's, like they swing it like a bat. And these little abstractions, these little abstract ideas add really interesting elements to a story. But, those are different concepts within a storytelling approach, as opposed to being rendered in the abstract. And yet at the same time, there's a lot of hyper expressions where someone's like, oh, the jaw really drops down, and which anatomy doesn't work that way, and so on and so forth. So there's our first panel. Now you can go and do additional dots in space like so, for other stars that aren't as bright as the white ones, just to add some visual complexity to your image. But you're going to have to, with each of those, do the outline on those to separate them as a value. Because in this approach, this is the basic rule set that we've established. Now, there's a fun story called Area 51. It's an animated film for kids. And it's all about this alien teenager kid who's like, hey man, I really like so-and-so in my class and I want to ask her out on a date. And his friends are like, man, you're too square. And it's all 1950s Americana, but they're green aliens with antennae and big feet and so forth. And a spaceship lands on this planet. And out comes an astronaut in a spacesuit. And it's a 1950s sci-fi cliche romp fest. All the things in this thing are, like, all the examples in it are pure 1950s sci-fi tropes. Except for the alien is a human being, a NASA astronaut who's landed on this planet, to see if it's habitable for humans to live on. And he's being hunted by the government, and the military is attacking his ship, and the teenage kids, anybody that has a dog in his town looks like an alien from the movie Aliens. Like, what a fantastic abstraction of a form, right? Liz says, cement highways for abstract elements. There you go. Liz also says, very cool. I cut out chrome wheels, bridge sections, cement highways for abstract elements. Yeah, it's taking those things and colliding visuals together that one may not associate. Like if you have, okay, so here's another approach. Let me see. I've got, there it is. Okay, give me 1 second. So I've got a couple of other elements from the collaging I discovered when I was looking through here to say, well, maybe I'll do, how am I going to approach this collage project and what am I going to use? And I realized that in those collage materials, we had these. So here is, if we're going to look at sci-fi planets, this is another representation of sci-fi planets, is, lemons. So this one has this sort of symbolic approach to sci-fi. Here's another independent approach to science fiction, you know, and we can have, I can cut out a couple of these and you have a couple of little smaller planets nearby. Creeps. Why not? Why not do that, you know? So yeah, so let's, there we go. I got some skizzers. So I'm going to cut out the leaf here. And this will be another interpretation of space planet. So there we go. And then we can have, there's the sun in the far off distance. How's that? All right. So I'll put these down. Have I got? Yes, I do. Excuse me a second. I've got, I had to move that so I can get my glue. So we'll do this for our other way of interpreting sci-fi. I'll move the camera just a sec. So I'm just going to put that down with this pasty glue, or what's it called? Baton de cord. Nope, glue stick. So we'll put down our lemon planet, our very citrusy galaxy here. So we'll put that down here in the foreground. I'll trim off the extra off the page in a sec. But so there's our next background. You know what I could have really done is, instead of drawing space, we could have just put all the grapes in the background. I love it. For Halloween, I placed a pumpkin moon. Another weird one that sold. Nice. Nice job, Fussy Cut. Wow, thank you. So, yeah, so there we go. That's another way of looking at it. Now, if you get an opportunity and you look up the work by Jack Kirby, one of the things that Jack started doing of his own volition is he would do collages where he would cut out stuff from magazines and make these insane kaleidoscopic spaces for the abstraction of alien space. And the beautiful thing about that, of course, is that he's really thinking outside of a box, and yet at the same time, you know, putting an element into comic story that really hadn't existed before he did that. You know, so there's interesting ways that you can look at how you can interpret planets. So maybe why sci-fi, instead of drawing all these different things, or maybe we will, I'm not sure yet, but for the time being, hi Paula, hello darlings. Wonderful. So rather than exploring spaceships and lasers and aliens, let's look at all the different perspectives that you can have through a sci-fi story by making different planets in outer space representations. So here's another one we can do. I'm going to take this piece of, it's a rug from a magazine. And so we'll take this and we'll trim this out as a planet and incorporate that into yet another perspective on how this could go. Here we are. Save that for something else. All right. So I'm going to trim off the smaller bits because we can make some smaller items in space. I have another idea for how we can go about some other representations of abstracting ideas in a story. Fussy, 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 fussy. Okay, so here's our rug planet. the majority of the population on it is bald. Yeah. What do we got? So sorry I can't join so often. Hubby's not well. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that, Paula. Well, wish him well for us. We'll put him in our prayers. All right. So let's put our carpet planet down here. And I'm just having fun with the allocation of the objects as I put them in the panels. So there we go. We'll put space rug planet over here, and then we can put some smaller, couple of smaller rugs throughout. Just gonna, yeah, just some weird little bits of what now, what now. There's one. Get off my finger. Clearly I've got glue on my finger. Oh, I've lost it. Well, there's one planet that's crashed and destroyed. So here's our next one. I'm just going to glue this on right away. I dropped it. Look at that. That one made it to the surface. So, okay, so here's we've got our fruit-based galaxy. We've got our rug-based gallery. We've got our stenciled-based gallery. You've come to the right place to lighten the day. Chris is abstracting. Uh-oh. So here's another idea. Let's keep going. I have a picture of the Queen. Now, if you're a royalist, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. So I'm going to take this image of the Queen's head and we're going to have that as a planet. As silly as that might sound, in a lot of different stories, you will have planets like Ego, the living planet, or Mogo, who is a planet that this space cops of the future live on, and fun ideas like that. And I love stuff like that. Noma Sakat is a thing even in Star Wars where they have a living planet. Crazy ideas. Being in Chris's brain is always a joy. Oh boy. Okay. So we can put, we're going to put her head upside down. And the reason I'm going to put her head upside down is to, well, why wouldn't you? Because the beautiful thing of space is that our assumption is that, we're always looking at things in the right angle. But if you stand at opposite sides of the Earth and both of you point directly up, you're not pointing in the right direction. One isn't. Somebody's pointing the opposite direction. So when you look at things in outer space, that's why it's fun. If you're drawing a space station or something, draw it upside down. So we'll put the head here. So there's our next planet. And so yeah, so this is just weird perspectives on it. And we're going to add a whole bunch of elements to this. I'm a big fan of Queentopia. I love Queentopia. That's the official name. I'm gonna write down here Queentopia. That's going in the story. Thank you, Paula. All right. So and then I'll put I'll use this little stencil and round her out a little bit more as I get into the finishes of it. So hey, get down there. Come on, quit causing such a tizzy, Lizzie. All right. So there we go. So there's our next one. So we've come at this perspective on planets from a very different pile of directions, right? And it's just using some of these stencils. And I mean, here's the thing. Okay, this is from the Royal Ontario Museum here in Canada, in Toronto. So this is a map that charts the progression and movement of Vikings, as far as we know, historically, into Canada, which goes back to the 1100s, and as far as we know. And it's interesting, this, because you could take a stencil, and if you don't want to draw a planet, but you got to put a planet in something, you can use a stencil and over an image like this, and put cut a circle out of that, and that's your planet, right? Now, we're going to do that now. So, I had a pen. It was so beautiful. And I've got a really dry planet joke in a second here as well. So that'll be... These are these things where you pick them up and you're like, oh, that's so... I love that. It's what a piece of information that is. I'm going to save that and display it or something. And then it just sits in a drawer forever. That's what this postcard has been. Because I think that ROM visit is like 10 years ago. And I'm just discovering it right now. Fussy, fussy, fussy. I'm even going to leave the text on it for now. Okay, so there's our little new planet with a map, made from a map. Exactly. You can be a Viking descendant. Great t-shirt. I have a pen. It'll be on my gravestone. So, yeah, I could be a Viking descendant. More than likely. I mean, I'm not teeny tiny. So here's some leaves that I've cut out. And so we're just going to nap a piece off of this. And we're going to make a very dry planet. It's all about finding the right spot though, right? There. Right there. That's the one. Because map planet just disappeared off my desk. I'll get it. Don't worry. We'll catch him. We'll find him. He's going to be okay. Use that for printing. Okay. Use that too. So here's our leaf planet, our dry planet. It's our version of Dune. It just doesn't have, deserts. It has just piles and piles of dry leaves. All right, let me get the other planet and put these down. So our narrative can take what we've got here, okay, and we can take these abstract elements and make story from those, right? So what I mean by that is, so if this is a planet of, let's put this here. So if this planet is a giant head, well, what does this symbolize? And if this is a planet of fruit, and if this is a planet of carpets, and a carpet with a carpet moon, well, what do each of these things start to symbolize and how does that affect our story? So, we can take story elements and add those into the overall composition by the fusion of text and visuals, right? So I'm going to move up to our next tier now, and we're going to put our Viking planet in place. Okay, and we got to come up with one more, folks. One more planet. Is that going to help? I'll raise it up again in a second. So I've got a big finish coming up here. I lost my scissors. So, yeah, so I've got a picture of the planet Earth here. I've got a little, just cutting it out. We're not going to eat the whole thing because it's going to be too large for the panel. And then I've got one more. This is from Star Wars. This is the K2SO robot. So we can put, we'll do Robot Planet. And so let's figure out how big we can make it where it still sits in a panel. Like one more, it'll take up the whole space. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to cut around the head like this. And then we're going to cut out the bottom part of the face, right? Vikings take over the universe. There you go. Okay, so it's craft time with Christopher.
Hi kids, we're going to do some crafts today. Does everybody have their scissors? Is their mom and dad right next to them to help them with their cutting? If you're too small and your hands aren't really good with the scissors, help it. Ask mom to do the cutting for you. Don't disrupt dad reading his newspaper. Blap, blap, blap. Anyways, so here's Robot Planet. And I'm just going to... Okay, so here's our Robot Planet. I'll move that up into the frame. Knocking half of my desk off. All right, so we've got the last two things is Robot Planet. Do not talk to these guys. They're not nice. If you had a Corbin photo at hand, a cat can be a world. That's a great idea. I wish I did that. Yeah, I wish I thought that through. So, and then the last one is this. And so the reason that the last one is Earth is that it helps science fiction makes more sense overall when you can relate it directly. That's why the most successful science fiction takes ideas that can represent today's notions, like things that actually affect our lives in the real world, and how you can relate those through a larger lens, like in a sci-fi universe. So there's a really brilliant television series that just ended. It's the first one, in my estimation, that has been any good. It ticks all the boxes since Disney bought the Star Wars franchise, and it's called Andor. And that television series doesn't have a single lightsaber in it. The entirety of that television series is all about the challenges for the universe because of the Empire and the people that are rising up against it, and at the same time the oppression of individuals or the universe by the Empire. What a great notion. So it's really interesting. So here's our, and I'll pull the camera back out. So here's our 9 panels. Now our first panel, the idea is why sci-fi? Or just as easily, we can put Earth on that panel and say why sci-fi? And I can try to find a photo of Corbin. Yeah, I think I'll do that. That's a great idea. Thank you for that suggestion, Susanna. So here's the robot head, and then I'll put Corbin. Well, then we've got 3 different heads. Maybe I should have done a cat head instead of the queen's head. Well, you know what? Let's do this. Let's just stick to this and use the text because it's a nice poppy element. So now we've got, here's all the different aspects of planets and different ways that we can look at this. And so I'll put these last 2 items on here, and then we'll start to add to it. Now, do we add to it using this motif? Right? Like, do we add to it as, I don't know how long that's going to stay. I'm probably going to put in gel medium on this sucker. Yeah, so there's Killer Robot Planet right there. These guys are not nice. They're not nice. Anyways, if you're coming up on a planet that looks like this, turn left, huh? You know what I mean? Anyways. All right, where are we at? Part cat, part human? Oh my goodness. How about the little old lady planet? Then the entire population are cats. I did a story a few years ago, and it's all about let me see. I'll find one, and I'll show you the story. Give me a sec. I'll find a copy of the book that it's from. Because the two hardcovers that most people know about that's on Amazon, those are just the books that I've released to the internationally to the world. That's my 30th and 31st book. Oh no, 29th, 30th, and 31st book, including alphabet book. But I've done all kinds of books before that. So let's see. There it is. Okay, so this is the first time I did a one-page story extravaganza, and it's, I'm going to move that in case it's got glue. This is a landscape format book, and these are all my notes for my cover. I can remove the tape from the logo, put the price over here, and I put it over there. Draw a better picture of yourself, and don't forget to erase your notes, Lori wrote here. And I said, I won't, hun, thanks. And check your spelling. And then so it says, so professional. So ridiculous. So this is the first time that I took these one-page story suggestions and collected them. And they're all in a profile format. So the first one is Hop Like a Bunny. And you know, life is stressful. I think that I'll live as a bunny. They don't seem to be stressed. Maybe, it says, there I am at the end. And then this is Antonio Banderas is too sexy. El Mariachi Inn, ah yes, too sexy. So there's Nicolas Cage pretending to be the queen, to give the queen's address, and so on and so forth. There's one of the earlier, hello, my name is Steven, I'm brushing my teeth. This is Frankenstein as the mentality of a little boy. Vegan zombies. Let's see what else. I'll find some other fun ones. Let me see what I got. There's Kaiju Rock Paper Scissors, where three giant monsters have a rock paper scissor fight to see who gets to destroy the city. Which one was I looking for? Oh, there it is here. Tonight on Peculiar Interests. Tonight we're visiting with pet owner Mrs. Doris Oates. There she is. I like to have pictures of my little ladies all over the houses, Doris. Doris is one of many elderly today that are looking for companionship. She has found it in her pets. Time for afternoon tea, my darlings, directs Mrs. Oates. Oh, I would be lost without my pets, she quips. Doris has had so many pets over the years that she has lost count of their number. And then here's Doris. She cares for them well, but is she really happy? Smile for the nice television people, my ladies. Miss Winkins, do stop that. Would you ladies like some yum-yums? So there you go, cat lady. It's a cat. So all the pictures that you think is of her cats. That's Doris with one of her little ladies. And then that's Doris. And then that's Doris. So that's a cat lady planet. She's got all the little ladies that she keeps. Anyhow, so these are some of my this is some of the earlier sillier pages I had. Wear Hair Care is about a werewolf that's suffering from male pattern baldness. Vampire Romance. The World This Is Out Of. It's about two robots that are being interrupted on a romantic date by one of these terrible human space explorers. Yeah, just nonsense. Anyways, so yeah, where was I? Okay, here we go. So we've got our 9 panels now for our story. I have to go feed the hubs. Hugs for all. Thanks. Thank you, Paula. Thanks for coming by, and big hugs for your hubs from everybody, please. So we'll take our pencil that I've misplaced. You'd think I'd have a lot of them around. Just making sure I'm not wearing it. I stick pencils in my ear or wherever else, and then can't figure out where I put them, like underneath a pile of magazine clippings. All right, so it's totally fun humor. Oh, thanks, Liz. Okay, so we've got this motif here, and we'll continue that on for everything else, so that we'll put these little outlines and carry on in this way. So I'm going to put some silly little devices into place here that we're going to fit into our story, where so this is near the Knitting Nebula. Now I can't be one of those guys that makes any comments about, oh, cat ladies, they're because I'm a cat man. Who are we kidding? All right, so here we are near the Knitting Nebula, and I'll try to find, I'll do a little cross stitch or pattern there or something like that. So here's our one universe, and this is I'll do I've got a couple little pieces to do some additional carpet planets over here. And so let's figure out our jokes. So if we've got, here's our citrus universe. Here's our old cat lady with all of her pets universe. And here's our dry planet, like Dune. But it's not covered in desert sand or anything like that. It's covered with dry leaves. Oh, there you go, milkshakey wig. Ah, nice. That's perfect. Let's see. There you go. Milkshakey way goes right there. And then this is Queentopia. And it's the Citrus Gallery and the Citrus Galaxy. Good heavens, spelling is just difficult for me today. What else we got, folks? Let's see. Oh, how about with the map universe or the map planet? Nobody knows how to get there. Nobody knows how to find it. Map planet, nobody knows how to find. Oh yeah, and then there's our dry planet. Not sand, leaves, which most people do. And yeah, so there we go. Do we have something for our, okay, has anybody got anything that can think of for our textile planet, our planet of rugs, other than my goofball joke about everybody that lives there is bald? What's the gold? Give me some gold here, folks. Snakes and ladders. Oh, snakes and ladders is great. Why didn't we put that on here? Oh yeah, robot planet. No one here has a personality. Okay. Oh. I'm just going to write down snakes and ladders. See what we can do with that. So here we go. So there's the basics of our abstracting an idea into a story. Why sci-fi is, and this is exactly why sci-fi is because you take one idea that you want to represent, some sort of science fiction, And just by, hyperextending that idea as far as you can take it, when you just take one concept, the planet, well, lemon, citrus galaxy, lemon planet, the rug planet, or everybody on it, everybody that lives there is bald, Queentopia, of course it's all referencing to little old lady business. And then dry planet, map planet, robot planet, and I don't know what this place is. It seems odd, It sort of lets you take a notion and just explore it. But when you do have these perspectives on all these planets, okay, and how different they all are, when you put Earth at the end, Earth becomes its own punchline. Because if you think these places are weird, it's like, then Earth becomes an abstract idea. It doesn't become about, our associative planet Earth, and what we know Earth to be. It becomes, whatever this might turn out as, whatever this planet might actually represent. And that's as all of these odd concepts in one, right? So, it starts to have a little fun together. Bud Light Lightning. Where did the Bud Light go? So maybe this, okay, how about this? What do people think of this idea? How about, here's a challenge. I would love to see people come up with another planet. If anybody's interested in this, I highly encourage, and please, if you feel like sending those along, then I'll talk about them in the next stream. But I highly encourage people to sit down with a piece of paper, whatever size, and come up with a planet of your own, and to explore that. Like I love, like Liz has Snakes and Ladders planet, the Bud Light planet, Bud Lightning, Bud Light Lightning, lovely. Where'd they go? It's fun, these notions of alternative planets. I'm sure that you've got like dog planet, cat planet. This planet is shaped like a turtle. It's in a really, really slow orbit around its sun. Really slow orbit. And but that's fine. There's so many different things that we can explore and have fun with here. So I highly encourage other people to try. You don't have to do 9 different things. If you can just figure out doing a collage and putting together one, fussy cut a circle, and see what you can see, where you can go with that story. See where you can explore that, right? And I know that I put all of the text on in my stories digitally, and if you don't have the facility, it doesn't mean you can't write, underneath the drawing or over top of it, right? Baby Bell Cheese Planet. Ah, so good. So good. Liz, you're giving up all the good stuff. So please feel free to try that on your own and to explore that. Now I'll sit down and finish out the rest of this page, and we'll make a story about alternative planets. Why sci-fi is. I'll tell you why sci-fi is. Imagination is weird. So we'll really go to town and have some fun together, folks. So this sounds like a good idea. I can't believe I said that about my own idea. All right. So go give that a go. See what it does for you. I'll put space in the backgrounds of all these in whatever weird way space works. They're near the Tomato Soup Nebula. Like, you can just do so much with this. I love the milkshakey way. I'm going to steal that one if I can. The milkshakey way is where this planet is. I think all white that's on the planet, it may be milk. Clouds built entirely out of milk. Why not? So I'll get this together and get it done for tomorrow. For those that are following along this week, here is where the painting is now of the mountains that I'm doing. Here's how you can see how it's going from the center out. So as we go out this way, it's less and less finished. And yeah, so that's where that is at this moment. Sorry for the shaky cam. So, okay. All right. Well, that's about it for me today, gang. I'm going to get to get this finished and to get this commission here done. But I hope you guys give this a try, and I hope you guys have some fun with it, because it's just a simple thing, a simple idea of abstracting an idea and turning that into a story. And you never know what you'll discover in that process of creation, you know. But this is, again, something that drawing, you don't necessarily really need to be able to draw whatever, or you can draw them, you know, why not? But just as the example here is to show that we can collage those two. So, okay. Yeah, that's about it for me. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming and joining in. Thank you very much, everybody, taking part in the chat here. And thank you, Linda, the moderator with the mostest. And I hope that you all have a good day. Give that a try. And I'd love to see those examples that people come up with. So if you do, tag me in it, please, so I can find it. But in the meantime, I will be back tomorrow, 2 p.m. EST. Okay, so I hope to see you then, and we'll work on something else. If you've got suggestions for one-page stories, feel free to put them in the comments on my videos here, or in Instagram, Facebook, or Patreon, in any of those posts. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now. Go make a planet.